Hello everyone, Lytro Storm here, and today we're back with What If Shane Killed Rick, Part 7. If you haven't already checked out the first 6 parts, they're obviously going to be integral to understanding what's going on, so make sure you do that before watching this video. They'll be linked in the description and comments section. The last part left us off with some pretty major changes that is going to be interesting going forward in the series, so without further ado, let's just go ahead and talk about them now. Season 10 still begins with the same training scene at Oceanside, but Aaron is not present. Instead, he's replaced by Jesus. Since there's no RJ, the group would never discover a Whisperer mask, so nobody gets super paranoid. Michonne is just really upset about how she failed Carl and how it's impacted him. They have to cross into Whisperer territory to stop the forest fire from the satellite, and nothing has changed there. Alpha decides to send her walkers to Alexandria for 2 days straight, which leads to the group going to talk to her. Carl would want to go for obvious reasons, but like Carol, similarly preps himself with his father's Colt Python. He wants to end Alpha for what she's caused. The deaths of Aaron, Beth, Enid, Judith. Michonne is also partially to blame, but Alpha is clearly the bigger issue here. Alpha would only be able to point out the 2 times they crossed into her land, since there was no Whisperer mask to investigate. Carol fails her shot at Alpha, and Michonne apologizes for her. But Carl doesn't apologize. He raises his revolver and fires at Alpha, but Michonne tries to stop him, leading to it hitting her non-fatally. The Whisperers begin attacking with some firing shots while the others chase our group down with knives. Either way, Daryl and the others are on the run. Since they're getting attacked by both blades and gunshots, I'm gonna say Michonne and Laura get injured slightly here. They manage to fight off the Whisperers that attack with knives and just run into the woods. At a certain point, Alpha stops sending the Whisperers and they just head back home. But Carol's paranoia keeps the group on edge as she believes she sees more of them when they're not really there. Michonne gets angry at Carl for nearly getting them all killed and potentially starting up another war. Carl snaps back that he could have killed her if she didn't get in the way. She always gets in the way. Everything is ruined because of her. Daryl tries to get Carl to chill out, but he's furious, so he storms off to keep watch with Carol. Neither of them have been sleeping very much, and both are in similar spots right now. She offers Carl some of her pills, but he turns it down. Carl tries to convince Carol to go to bed and let him take watch, but she doesn't want to. The path Carol's going down makes Carl rethink his own actions, and that maybe he should stop on his quest for vengeance before he goes too far. However, when Carol starts getting her supposed hallucinations, Carl is also there to see the Whisperers, which makes him realize, wait, Carol was actually right. So him reconsidering his actions based on Carol being a weirdo has basically just been completely undone, and he's back on his warpath. They get back to Alexandria in the morning and find that the walker attacks have been stopped. While Alpha should theoretically retaliate with sending her horde, she has to think of Lydia, so she decides not to, even though it makes her look kinda weak. When the tree falls at Hilltop, Jesus would be taking charge, which kind of serves as his reawakening to recognizing he's a good leader. I think Michonne and Ezekiel's kiss might actually begin something in this version, since Michonne has been without a lover the entire story. And now she's just got so much stress and grief in her life that I think something new might look good to her. Michonne takes Ezekiel back to Hilltop with Eugene and the others that were with her. Judith wouldn't be there, but I don't think she made too big of an impact. What is very unfortunate is that Negan isn't there to help save Lydia from the ambush that Margot starts. But thankfully, Carl arrives, aiming his revolver at her from behind. During this, he remembers the story Daryl told him of Rick stopping him from ending Jim's life by using that very gun. The words he said, "We don't kill the living." Carl tells Margot to drop her weapon, and she does. He then comforts Lydia before everyone shows up, where he's able to easily explain what happened. He's obviously a lot more believable than Negan is, so Gage, Margot, and the other dude end up in jail for a while. The night Michonne stays at Hilltop would be spent with Ezekiel in a pretty similar manner to their comic counterparts. However, in the morning, Michonne would look closer at Ezekiel's neck to see the tumor. He tells her that he's likely got cancer, and she apologizes for this. Lydia doesn't go in a cell since there's no question of any prisoners being let out. Daryl and Sadiq also have no reason to go to Hilltop. Without Negan outside, Amelia and Milo die due to the walkers and the bus. In the next episode, Carol and Daryl still go out, with Carol wanting to destroy Alpha's herd, but this time, Carl would join them. He'd be on Carol's side for this, with Daryl just kinda trying to get them to think about it more, but ultimately being unable to stop them. So he comes with. They find a Whisperer and bring him to Alexandria for questioning. Lydia isn't in a cell, but I'm sure that Carol would still want to see if she recognizes him. Since Aaron isn't there, they never make contact with Mary/Gamma, so Carol would probably just keep riding with Lydia until they find some random Whisperer. Lydia then runs off, and Dante kills Sadiq after accidentally tipping him off to his true nature. The following fight with Rosita plays out the same as in canon as well. Carl is heartbroken that Sadiq is now dead, as the two were very close since Carl brought him in. The thought that Dante lived as one of them this whole time once again gets Carl torn on who to trust. It seems like everyone is leading him astray now. Gabriel enters Dante's cell, pulling out a knife after his little speech, but Carl arrives yelling for him to stop. Dante and Gabriel look at Carl, who also has a knife in hand. Gabriel moves away from Dante, quickly locking the gate and taking Carl outside. He asks Carl why he came down there, and the boy replies that it was the same reason he did, to kill Dante. But seeing Gabriel about to do it made him wonder where his humanity had gone. Gabriel rebuts that by deciding what happens to him in the normal fashion with the council, they're playing the game Dante and the Whisperers want them to play. Carl replies that he knows, but that's why they have to be united on the decision, to prove that they won't destroy each other over him. Going to take matters into their own hands doesn't help at all. They've lost too much to just do things on a whim now. Gabriel can't disagree, so he walks away, and Carl glances at the holding room door, looking at the knife one more time, before also leaving. Over time, rumors would spread about the Alpha's daughter still being alive due to what one of the Whisperers saw. Mary would hear about this and take him to Alpha, not wanting him to believe what he says. Alpha swiftly handles him by making him look like a fool before killing him in front of all of them. But even so, Mary can't seem to shake how real what he was describing felt, so she heads to Alexandria to find out the truth. Luckily for her, people have just left Alexandria as well. I think Carol might go to search for the Horde again, but I don't think she'd find much luck. Meanwhile, Daryl would convince everyone that finding Lydia should be a top priority, since her being with them is what protects them most. So Jesus sends Jerry and Magna's group, minus Yumiko and Luke, to help them search. Carol runs into Mary while searching for Alpha's herd and aims her bow. Mary asks her if it's true that Alpha's spawn still lives, and she tells her yes. Of course, Mary is torn over this knowledge and tries to run away, but Carol shoots her in the leg with an arrow, preparing to bring her back to Alexandria. But on her way there, she comes across Daryl and the others who are searching for Lydia. This only further confirms to Mary that Lydia still lives, and Daryl, being angry that Carol ran off again, decides for all of them to head to Alexandria now, since they've got a prisoner. There, Mary offers to tell them the location of Alpha's herd, in exchange for getting to see her nephew, the baby that they saved from Hilltop. The group takes the location and heads out to find the Horde, with Carl choosing to join them. They end up in the cave with the Horde, and Carl basically just replaces Aaron here. This means things go the same, and they all escape, minus Magna and Connie. Mary is currently locked up with Dante, and they both discuss what's going on. Dante asks whether the information she's giving them is good, and she replies that it is. Dante is confused as he thought she'd be a rat, trying to lead these people into a trap, but she's not. She's taking the straight path, and he can't really process that. Daryl and the others haven't returned yet, so Gabriel leaves with Scott and a few others to find them and deal with the supposed herd coming. But it turns out that the herd was a lie to lure some of them out, and Beta sneaks into Alexandria. Once there, he kills a few people to turn them and cause a distraction for the others. That way, he can slip into the cells and secure Mary and Dante. Beta ensures Dante's loyalty, and then frees him, and then threatens Mary to come with him for a painless death. Laura tries to stop Beta with her axe, but Dante fights her off, allowing Beta to disarm her and quickly finish her off. Mary makes an attempt to escape during the chaos, but since Beta took the reins on the fight with Laura, Dante chases after her. She tries to escape, but Dante tackles her to the ground and begins beating her up. Of course, she tries to fight back, but Dante was able to overpower Sadiq, so I think he'd have this in the bag. Mary gets knocked unconscious, and Beta and Dante leave Alexandria with her. However, it results in Dante and Beta being forced to leave her behind when Gabriel and the others show up. Carl makes it back to Alexandria instead of Aaron, but the others get separated. Gabriel mentions that Dante got out during the scramble and is probably back with Alpha, spilling all of their secrets. He's the one who built the trap door that let Beta in. And Carl told him to let him live? Gabriel's angry about this, and Carl has no response really. Rosita doesn't have to go with Mary to Hilltop since she wasn't injured. Instead, Carl joins her with Gracie as he wants to spend some time with her. She doesn't have a father anymore, and he doesn't have a sister. She was taken in by Michonne, but Michonne is currently gone. Speaking of, no Judith means that there'd be no reason for Luke to bring up the library he knows about. And even if he did, just because he wanted to get some books, Michonne has no reason to go. She's more upset due to Judith and Aaron's deaths, so she just wants to focus on their actual destination. Not going to the library means they don't run into Virgil initially, but they would still run into him at Oceanside. It might be a little later, since he didn't rush to leave the library, but he would still arrive. This means Michonne still goes off with him to his island, and everything plays out similarly there. The only difference is just a small one, that her visions have nothing to do with Rick, and she doesn't leave to find Rick at the end of the episode. So I mean, she'll just be here for the foreseeable future, but nothing really major. Daryl arrives at Hilltop shortly after Carl, with Lydia in tow, and since Rosita isn't at Hilltop, she doesn't interfere with Eugene's e-dating. Because Jesus is alive, he'd likely want to make a stand for Hilltop when he finds out Alpha's bringing in her horde. A lot of people don't like that plan, but not defending it doesn't make much difference if they go after Alexandria next. No matter what, they're getting a fight. Although Negan isn't with the Whisperers, I think Dante might still try to block off the roads, since he would likely know about them from his time in Alexandria. Jesus and Earl take the lead on preparing Hilltop for war, which is really sick. At some point, Carol shows up as well, reuniting with Ezekiel. When Alden prevents Mary from seeing Adam, Carl is probably a lot less nice than Aaron was. For one, Enid was a big loss for Carl as well, so that doesn't excuse Alden's behavior. 2, Alden was a savior before he joined them, and Carl would definitely point that out. It's not like Mary's story is any different from his. In a fit of rage, Alden just runs off with Adam, meaning that Carl was pretty much right. Eugene informs Stephanie of the great threat that his group's about to take on, and she encourages him to survive it, revealing where she is located. This hypes him up for the battle, and he heads out to prepare. Since Judith isn't here, she wouldn't fix up Daryl's jacket for him, so he doesn't have it here. Very unfortunate. The other less notable changes are that Jesus is in the front lines in place of Aaron, which pretty much finishes his arc of stepping up to become a real leader. Rosita not being here doesn't really change too much. Aaron is once again replaced by Carl to carry Luke around after they escape. He comes across Dante in the woods and asks why he would help them do this, even after he saved his life. Dante replies that Siddiq was a good man. He wasn't supposed to die. If Carl was friends with him, he probably doesn't deserve it either. As the walkers he's herded begin approaching, he tells Carl to go. And so Carl takes Luke and begins running off, while Dante kills the few walkers. Meanwhile, walkers attack Mary, Alden, and Kelly. As a moment of redemption, Mary locks Alden and Kelly into a vehicle, distracting and leading the walkers away. After that, she takes them all out and relaxes for a moment. Someone yells, "Look out!" and she turns to see Beta, who barely misses stabbing her with his knife due to the distraction. Beta and Mary look to see Jesus approaching them. He draws his sword as Beta pulls out his other knife, refusing to let this guy stop him. The two begin their clash, with Beta's power being matched by Jesus' technique and skill. This fight actually does happen in the comics, but the situation is a little different here. You see, Jesus just isn't as cool and probably not as strong as he was in the comic universe, and Beta is probably stronger in the show, given how much he's able to do. He nearly kills Daryl in their first encounter, kills Laura effortlessly, beats Rosita pretty easily, nearly kills Negan, and takes a slice and 2 knives in his eyes. He just pulls them out, and in the comics he gets shot once in the side and dies. So Beta clearly takes this one, however it would still be a really cool fight to see adapted. Mary would probably jump in to stab Beta when Jesus is about to be killed, but Beta simply shrugs it off and shoves her aside. This slight distraction is enough to let Jesus slash Beta with his sword, cutting him pretty badly. Beta retaliates by grabbing the blade with his hand and running Jesus into a tree before knocking him to the ground. He then tosses his sword to the side and turns his attention back to Mary. Mary gets chased across the forest until Alden shoots an arrow at Beta, causing him to flee. Mary tells Alden and Kelly where Jesus is, but Jesus shows up himself. That way it's pretty clear Jesus lost the fight, but Beta is heavily wounded and failed to kill or even significantly hurt Mary or Jesus, although he is pretty beat up at the moment. Back with Dante, he finds Lydia and tells Alpha where he kept her. The key difference here is that he would actually take Alpha to her and not double-cross her like Negan. So Alpha enters the room, finding Lydia trying to escape, only to throw her to the ground. Lydia obviously can't overpower her mother, but she does still bite one of Alpha's fingers. Sadly, this is where Lydia meets her demise at the hands of her own mother. Dante watches, somewhat reconsidering what he's part of, after seeing just how different both sides have been. After Lydia is killed, Alpha stands up, looking at her hand, feeling stronger than ever. But that wound will never heal, leaving a permanent symbol of what she's done. Alpha demands Dante stay behind and wait for her daughter to turn so that she can herd them with the others, and he does so. Beta and Alpha meet up once more, explaining to each other what has been done. Dante takes the rank of Gamma now that Mary has deserted them, but Beta is seeming less and less useful as time goes on. He failed to secure or kill Mary both times he tried. His biggest success was bringing Dante to her. Perhaps it's a sign. With Alpha now living, the communities have a much bigger problem on their hands. Lydia was the one thing keeping Alpha from just wiping all of them out, and now she's gone. And without Negan there to reveal her location, the group would be on a wild search for Lydia, just for it to be unsuccessful. All the while, Alpha would be at her strongest, revealing to her followers that she had lied to them. She did not go through with killing her daughter before. She was weak. She then has Beta carry in Lydia's walker and declares that she is weak no more, and neither will they be. So once they've built up their army once again, they will crush all those that oppose them. The rest of the Whisperers are happy to hear this, and our group is not looking like they're in the best spot right now. Luckily, they take refuge in the same hospital as in canon, since Hilltop got all burned up. Jesus and Alden stay behind to keep an eye out on the Whisperers, and Daryl never runs into the rogue Whisperer since Beta isn't losing his mind. Alpha is still alive and leading them. Also, I imagine if Beta was able to locate the group with the voices in his head, Alpha would probably be able to as well since she's actually smart. So they're able to successfully surround the hospital with a massive herd. Sadly, we don't have Aaron, Negan, Judith, Lydia, RJ, or Dog here, but we do have Carl, Michonne, Jesus, and Mary. Jesus and Alden get surrounded by a bunch of walkers, which is what happened to Aaron and Alden in canon. But in the next episode, there's like 2 Whisperers left, so I guess they escaped or killed all of them off screen. Despite having a gun at their heads, I have no idea how they managed to do that, but at least with Jesus here instead of Aaron, it makes more sense. He's got all those cool skills, so him being able to disarm the guy with the gun works. But what he doesn't expect is for Beta to show up as they're fighting and just run him into the ground. While the two fight their rematch, Alden gets rushed by all the other Whisperers who nearly kill him, cutting him a bit. But luckily for Alden, one of the Whisperers is shot dead, causing the others to halt their attacks. As they turn around, they see a young blonde woman holding a Glock 17, which she fires until empty. If you're wondering why I mentioned this gun specifically, Google who uses it in the show. Not quite as iconic as Rick's Colt Python, but you'll probably understand. After running out of ammo, she gets rushed by the remaining few Whisperers, only for them to be attacked as well. Maggie arrived with some backup. Elijah and Cole proceed to wipe out the others, while Maggie sends an arrow at Beta. Jesus bounces off a tree, kicking Beta in the chest. Cole then tosses Jesus his blade, and he slashes Beta in order to prevent himself from being charged again. And with that, Beta bleeds out, embracing his death. Maggie checks on Alden, who is happy to see her, but his wounds are too great. The blonde with the gun apologizes to Alden for not being able to save him in time, but he says that without her help, it would have been worse. He locks hands with Maggie and smiles before bleeding out. Shortly after, Jesus takes off Beta's mask, surprised, and Cole asks, "Is that?" before getting cut off by Maggie, who says that they need to get going. Also, if you're wondering why Beta is out here with random Whisperers, I think Alpha would want Dante to have the spotlight as a chance to prove himself. So he'd be in charge of infiltrating the hospital, while Beta makes sure no one tries to interfere with the herd. Carl would stay inside the base, while the others go out into the herd to help with Luke's plan. But I think Michonne would want to go out, since she's better at close range, and Carol should stay inside, since she is really good with a bow. But once the horde tightens, and she can't really get a clear shot, Carol leaves to go after Alpha. At the same time, Carl and Gabriel have to deal with the Whisperers entering the hospital, which they do a lot better at, since Carl can help Gabriel fight them off. Dante is leading this charge, showing up to attack Carl, while Gabriel fights off the rest of the Whisperers. Dante says that he doesn't want to do this, running Carl into a wall and quickly taking his gun from his hand. He knocks it to the ground, and Carl struggles to break free. Gabriel is about to be killed by the other Whisperers, but Maggie and the others show up to save him, ending the last few enemies. As Dante turns around, Carl slices him with his knife before shoulder bashing him onto the ground. Gabriel prepares to gun him down, but Carl tells him not to, so he just knocks him out with his shotgun. As for Alpha, she sees Carol preparing to end her, only for Daryl and Michonne to show up and give her the slice. Now they just have the herd to worry about, which they don't have Lydia for. Instead, Carol agrees to take the herd off the cliff, though it would be suicide. She insists she'll be alright, but Daryl follows her, saving her at the last second. And that is the Whisperer arc. Now once again, we really didn't see Shane do anything at all in this part, but that's because I've been saving it for part 8, which is the next one. I mentioned this at the end of part 6, but part 8 will mainly just be about Shane and what he's been doing, giving him a full story, and it'll also explain who that young blonde is. So if you enjoyed this series so far, consider becoming a channel member, and you can have your name read out at the end of the video, like all these people. Ellie to Plug 2, Paul Keen, Hazy Brush, I Am Bored, Roderick Hare, Raven, Scintillating Susie, Marco DeCinco, Crayman, Sam Malum, Davisville 84, Willie, 23 Days Later, River Lamphere, Anarchist Dubs, and Aiden Kearns. You also get access to awesome perks if you become a channel member, like priority comment replies, exclusive community posts, and early videos. But as always, tell me if you like this part, tell me what you think will happen next, comment your requests for future videos, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.